Good evening, Monique, and good evening,
Hello.
everyone.
Good evening. Nice to see you, Mary Margaret. Hello,
Nice to see
everybody.
you. Are you
Thank
staying
you for
warm? I have my shawl
I'm
on. It's
I'm
cold. Even inside, it's
trying.
cold.
I am trying. I have a sweater on and I've had some tea, so I'm feeling pretty good right now. So I hope
You
everyone
look,
else is warm and toasty also at home watching us tonight.
you look a little tropical with that tropical plant behind you.
I'm being hopeful, maybe. Spring's coming soon. Good to
So
see you.
welcome, everyone, to Community Conversations. I'm Reverend Mary Margaret Earl. I'm the Executive Director and Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Monique Marshall-Veal, and I'm the Director of Special Projects, and I get to host Community Conversations with Mary Margaret.
And the Urban Ministry is a 200-year-old organization. We are now grounded in Roxbury, and we work for racial, social, and economic justice, partnering with the Roxbury community and 45 Unitarian Universalist congregations that are our members, and we are happy to welcome you.
Yes, and this is season 5, I believe, of our Community Conversations. And these conversations have highlighted the history, art, and experiences of Black and Indigenous people of color. And tonight is the second in a series of webinars that are highlighting the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And we're focusing on revolution in Roxbury past, present, and future. And tonight, we'll take a look at the role of African Americans during that war, but also in more recent conflicts. So thank you everyone for joining us for this wonderful conversation.
And we are so appreciative that member congregations sponsor these conversations. And tonight's conversation is sponsored by First Parish in Milton. And I believe we're going to hear from Reverend Lisa Ward, my dear colleague, about why First Parish in Milton wants to be part of what we're doing here.
Good evening. What an honor it is to help sponsor this evening's community conversation with historian Thomas Plant and educator Cheryl Brown-Greene as they tell the stories of African American veterans. The UU Urban Ministry has been unearthing vital history for many years to gain a true understanding of our lives together. This wonderful organization finds creative, courageous, and transformative ways to work in and with the Roxbury community and beyond to advance racial, economic, and social justice. I'm Reverend Lisa Ward, sending gratitude on behalf of First Parish in Milton UU for the many years that the Urban Ministry has created service opportunities, avenues for education, and ways to be in solidarity with the many partners of advocates, activists, and fiscal sponsors. The UU Urban Ministry is a vibrant conduit and model for the important work of justice. And First Parish in Milton is right there with you. Keep on keeping on. Thank you for it all.
Thank you to Reverend Lisa for that message. We're about to introduce our special guest this evening. I do want to remind all the visitors, audience members here that if you have questions and comments, you can percolate on them. You can put them in the chat, and we'll try to leave a few minutes at the very end for some of those questions. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our guests, Thomas Plant and Cheryl Brown-Greene. Welcome, welcome,
Welcome.
welcome.
Hi. Thank you for
So
joining
I
us.
have, yes, thank you. So it is my honor to introduce Thomas Plant, who we're very proud is a member of the board of directors of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry, and he serves on our history committee. He is a church historian, and his knowledge of the history of Roxbury, of the original worshiping congregation of First Church Roxbury, and this neighborhood is deep and vast. He has led many tours of our historic meeting house and of the neighborhood around the meeting house. He's a leader of the Roxbury celebration of Patriots Day, helping to remember the role of First Church during the Revolutionary War. And he also was a member of a earlier organ restoration committee that repaired the organ at First Church Roxbury. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Mary Margaret, and welcome everyone. I'm so glad to be here this evening to share with you some historical perspectives on Roxbury during the 250th anniversary celebration of the Revolutionary War.
Thank you.
Welcome, Thomas. And I will introduce Cheryl Brown-Greene. Cheryl Brown-Greene, a retired Boston public school educator, and is deeply committed to promoting Boston's rich history, particularly in Roxbury and Dorchester, through her involvement in organizations like the Boston Women's Heritage Trail and the Roxbury Collaborative. As a Women's Heritage Trail board member, she co-creates and leads historical tours and is also a reenactor of historical women. As a member of the Roxbury Collaborative, she supports events like Patriots Day, held at the First Church in Roxbury, and coordinates the Warren I. Brown Scholarship Committee that provides financial support to Boston High School seniors. She holds leadership roles with David L. Ramsey and Patrick E. Toy, veterans of Foreign War Auxiliary number 8772. And Cheryl is a past state VFW auxiliary historian and youth activities chairperson. Welcome again to Thomas and Cheryl. Thank you for joining us.
Very welcome.
So let me kick us off by talking about some of how we came to offer this gathering tonight. So Thomas, we talked about planning this conversation around the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War, and we're going to start there. And I wonder, can you give us an overview of the role of African Americans in the Revolution? Because we often don't hear about it.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. One of the roles that the Roxbury served in the Revolutionary War, and particularly African Americans, they fought very valiantly throughout the Revolutionary War, all the way up to the final victory at Yorktown. But in this year, where we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War, communities across the country, the Massachusetts is being funded to have those celebrations, and Roxbury was not one of those communities that were funded during this celebration. This goes with the lack of support that African Americans have received after fighting all the major wars of the country, and we'll hear more about that later. But African Americans continued to fight, whether they were slaves, whether they were freemen, or whether they came from many places, not just Roxbury, to fight during the siege of Boston. They fought normally without having a pension after the war. They continued to bestow their service to this country, and the country devalued their service and often gives myths and misinformation that only whites fought for the country's independence. But African Americans continued through their own patriotism, fought for this country, provided leadership, even though they had only been offered slavery and maybe freedom, for their commitment to building this free nation of independent people. And I think that's something that we have to remember, and something that we need to celebrate their heroism and their patriotism.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas,
Thomas.
for that. And tonight we want to delve into some key Boston figures in later wars in a moment. But first, I'd like for you and Cheryl to explain why it's important to shed a light on this history? Because as Mary Margaret said, you don't hear about it. So why is it important to you to shine a light on this history?
Because we have to be about celebrating the heroes that our people contributed to the growth and success of America today, this nation. If we don't celebrate our contributions and the success of this country by those who fought for its liberty, its justice, and its place in the world, the respect that America gets, then who will celebrate them? If we don't show up for remembering our heroes during celebrations like Veterans Day, Patriots Day, which we'll hear more about later, who will celebrate their contributions? We have to be about that as a people. We have to be about that as a nation. We have to give recognition to those who fought and died for freedom, for the independence of this nation.
Thank you. Cheryl, would you like to add why you think that it's important to, uplift this important history that is not as well known?
Yes, well, for me, I agree with Tom of how important it is to celebrate our history, but it wouldn't have been without learning at an early age why our history is so important for us. And I don't know, I have a slide to show.
Okay.
All right, so that is me. I circa 1961 with my father, who was a Korean War veteran, with the World War II veteran, Charles Stewart, and with Mr. Lamb, I can't remember his first name, but he was from World War I, selling a poppy, which is a symbol of our veterans, to Mayor Collins. And I can tell you that from my dad and being around a lot of the activities and things that he was involved in and he took me to, that he developed the importance of honoring our veterans. Next picture, please. But in particular, you'll see pictures of my parents who really helped foster this love of country, this love of serving our veterans. My dad served in the Korean War in the 272nd, and my mother Ruth Brown, my dad Warren Brown, and my mother Ruth Brown was the first Black state auxiliary president to the Veterans of Foreign Wars Auxiliary. So I have a proud history of my own that I like to celebrate, but it is really because of them and their understanding of the importance of history that I have carried that on since I was a little girl.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Such a cute picture. So I know, Cheryl, that you have probably three very powerful examples of once overlooked veterans. Patrick E. Choi, you spoke about Charles Lewis and David L. Ramsey. What can you tell us about these three Boston native sons?
Well, I'll start with Patrick E. Choi because very little was really known about him for a period of time. And I just want to thank my auxiliary member, Lynn McCall, and Joyce Stanley for helping me with the research that I did that gave me more information about what I consider a very significant person. Patrick E. Choi was born in 1888, and right in Roxbury. And he was known as an exceptional musician. And he attended the New England Conservatory of Music. And he performed in an orchestra at the Haywood Hotel. And I found out that the Haywood Hotel was located in downtown Boston on Washington Street. Before enlisting into the U.S. Navy, I understand he was, from what we've learned, he was a very, very celebrated pianist and very well known in Boston. And from what we can gather, he was a very charismatic person and very well known and very loved. But in 1918, and during World War I, he decided to leave his position at the Haywood Hotel and enlist in the Navy. Unfortunately, well, before that, it is said that he served on the USS Georgia, and it said that he really gave delight to a lot of the officers on the ship with his musical talents. But unfortunately, in 1918, it was also the worldwide pandemic for the flu, and he succumbed to that as they were going around South Africa, and he passed away and came back. His body was returned to Boston, and he's interred with full naval honors at Woodlawn Cemetery. But what I think is more very interesting to me about Patrick is you notice the picture of him, and that was in the Boston Globe. And from some other research, there are 3 or 4 different entries in the Boston Globe about Patrick. And it made me wonder, this person must have been very, very renowned in Boston, because I don't believe there were many African Americans who would have shown up in the Boston Globe. So truly, he was a significant part of the community. And for that, I think that's very significant. And I really wish I had an opportunity to know a little bit more about him. But from what I can tell, he was considered a great person. His legacy went on. At the beginning, I talked about being a member of the David L. Ramsey and Patrick E. Toy Post. And that would not have been possible without Charles Lewis. I don't know, we have a picture of him. And Charles Lewis was also a gentleman from World War I who started the Patrick E. Toy Post, but he was very important as well. He was a decorated serviceman, but only received recognition from France, which he saved many, many people. He was a great leader. And he wasn't recognized by the United States, but he was recognized by the people in France. If you see from the article that we have here, he was also in a Boston newspaper, and they felt it was very important to talk about him too. So I'm also imagining that he also had some prominence in the Roxbury community, and he also was from Roxbury, born in Roxbury. His parents were immigrants that came here, and he was instrumental in founding the Patrick E. Toy Post. I want to talk a little bit about that because I think I may have mentioned that he was a friend of Patrick E. Toy, and in order to create a VFW post, it has to be named after someone who passed away And Charles Lewis belonged to a veterans post, but at that time, Black people were not allowed to vote or participate in any of the decisions that were made in a veterans activities that a VFW posts were holding. So he decided, and it took a lot of work to petition to be able to have a post name where everyone would have the rights that all the other posts had. Because at that time, members could be at large, and he was able to petition the national organization, and he was able to found the first Black post in the United States, which is the Patrick E. Toy Post. And I'm very proud of that particular history, as we still are surviving after the Patrick E. Toy Post was founded in 1922. And in 2007, we joined with the next gentleman I'm going to talk about.
Cheryl, where was it? Where was it located? Where was the building actually, like where the location actually was when it opened?
Oh, but it was on Tremont Street near St. Cyprian's Church. They had a building there where the
Thank you.
post was.
Thank you.
I don't know if that was the original location, but I know as I was growing up, that's where they had their post home. And the next person I'll talk about, although he's a little bit more well known, is David L. Ramsey. I know many of you may have been by Ramsey Park, and there's also a lot more information online about this gentleman who was also born and raised in Boston. He attended, for those of you who might remember, I do the Asa Gray School and the Sherwin Middle School. My dad also went to the Sherwin Middle School. And he graduated from Boston English High School, and he was a great athlete and very smart. He went to, he enlisted in the Air Force in 1956, and he began a wonderful career in the military. He received many, many honors, and he really distinguished himself as a leader while he was there at West Point. He was one of the first African Americans to fly, excuse me, with the U.S. Force Thunderbirds. And during the Vietnam War, he served as a fighter pilot. Excuse me. He won so numerous awards. The Distinguished Flying Cross, the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, Air Force Good Conduct Medal. Unfortunately, and tragically, he died fighting in his jet, and in 1970, and there have been, when his family, who are still, many still here today, there was a beautiful ceremony to dedicate Ramsey Park, and he is interred at West Point. And he, again, when I think about it, we have 3 men from Roxbury who made significant contributions to our community.
See, Cheryl's breaking up a little bit. So what?
To break
Hey, Cheryl.
down barriers in order to make sure that they receive the same program.
Cheryl, you're breaking up, you're breaking in a little bit. So while we're waiting for the internet to sync up, I think we're going to go to, hopefully Cheryl will be able to reconnect. She might get disconnected and come back in. So while we're waiting for that, maybe we can go to the next question that we had, which was asking, Thomas, do you want to talk about what other key figures, especially Bostonian, should we know about? Oh, I see Cheryl came back again. Are you reconnected, Cheryl? Let's see, still frozen, still frozen. Thomas, who else should we know about? Or what key events should we know about? That, and maybe we want to go back to the Revolutionary War. I saw Joyce Stanley, who Cheryl mentioned, who's also an historian, wondered how many African Americans had served in the Revolutionary War. So maybe you can go back and talk about what some key points are.
There were over 5,000 African Americans that served during the Revolutionary War. Some of the people who served during the Siege of Boston right here in Roxbury were the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, was a Black regiment with mulattoes and Native Americans also in that. And they were stationed here right in Roxbury on the Dudley Estate, which is now out by Forest Hills. The Bucks of America was a troop of African Americans led by Colonel Milton, who lived on Beacon Hill. His house still stands today, and you can see it. He was the leader of the Bucks of America that featured Prince Hall and all those people that we've heard about, Prince Hall Masons, you've heard about that. And I participated with Prince Hall Masons when they decided to celebrate the African Americans who are founders of America. And they put that monument in Cambridge, Massachusetts on the Cambridge Common. And so if you want to see that, please go over there and see that, because that's telling a wonderful and different story that there are also Black founders of America, our country. So these are things that we need to remember, along with the heroes of the other wars, such as the Warren I. Brown, Ralph Brown, which we give both scholarship and community awards because of their service. Ralph Brown in the 277 2nd Artillery Battalion, Warren I. Brown and his civic leadership, as well as an educator who we celebrate and give scholarships to young people so they will know about the contributions of African Americans, not only in the Revolutionary War, all wars that we have fought in and have been somewhat unrecognized, and also to inculcate in themselves this really the sense of belonging and a sense of accomplishment. So I say again, if we don't celebrate them, who will? And I think that's an important question. Will we celebrate our heroes who have fought in all the wars of this country? Often, let's take, for example, World War II, when German soldiers were captured and sent to America to be encamped here, African Americans returning did not have the same respect as those German captured soldiers. They treated them a lot better. When veterans returned home here, white veterans were given the GI Bill and mortgages, low-cost mortgages, but African American veterans did not get the benefit of those mortgages that the government gave out and actually lifted them into the middle class, becoming homeowners. So there's a whole lot of discrimination, even after we served and fought for this country. and were treated as second-class citizens.
Thank you, Thomas. I see, Cheryl, you came back from the internet land.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So you, I wanted to circle back, and you were talking about the David Ramsey Park. David Ramsey, did I say that correctly?
David, oh, yes.
Yeah. Where is that park for people who want to go? As Thomas talked about the statue in Cambridge, where is the park if people want to go visit it?
It's located on Washington Street near Nubian Square,
Mhm.
on the corner of um,
Near Nubian
Right.
Square.
near Nubian Square.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I wanted to just back up to what you wanted to say about that, Cheryl, and then we'll go forward again.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add
No, I
before you
just
give your
wanted to
next?
say I'm very delighted that they're honoring David L. Ramsey in such a way, and that there is at least a physical uh, place where people can go and celebrate him. I know I think they're fixing it now, but there's a place that perhaps people might go by and just wonder who he was and what he did. And it's my hope to get an additional square, at least in the veteran squares that they have for Patrick E. Toy. There was one once, and I'm looking forward to trying to have him at least represented in a square so people perhaps will go by and maybe wonder. And hopefully we can get more presents for Patrick E. Toy and Charles Lewis on the internet in some ways, so that there'll also be another point where people can celebrate and learn more about them. I do know that Charles Lewis was a past commander, which means he was like the president of the Patrick E. Toy Post. They're called commanders. And I know he did a lot of community work, and I had the honor of being able to know him and his family. But again, we only have that little snippet that was in the Boston Post. And I just wish there were more about them, as Thomas mentioned, because they're forgotten. They went through a lot. They really weren't recognized the way that they should have been. And I want to celebrate them and make sure people know, even if it's just a little bit, how important they were to Boston, the Roxbury community. And if you think about it, just our country in general.
Mhm. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Thomas. I, thank you both for your uplifting of this important history. It's history that many people, including myself, didn't know about growing up. And I commend you for continuing to do that work. And I know that you all have been involved for a very long time. And I think about the young people now and the scholarships that are available to them. And I know that you're interested in getting young people involved in many ways, and getting them involved in Patriots Day as well is learning a little bit more about this history. Why is it that you think it's important to share this information and history with our young people, and why is it so important, to you and how you live your life and what you're doing for our community?
Well, I think it's important to get our young people involved because they're the bridge to our future as a community and as a nation. They will become our new leaders, both in our civic leaders and both our political on a national stage. They'll be our teachers, our lawyers, our doctors, and so forth. So we want to see them involved in every aspect because they have a key to the success of this country in the future. And so by having them involved in our celebrations, showing that they have a wonderful long history of service and contributions to this country, going back to the Revolutionary War and to all the wars we fought in, but also the commitment that we want to make sure that our communities get the necessary resources to continue to have people going on to higher education, serving the community through civics, and also contributing and sharing with them their successes, as well as being a role model for younger people who are now coming up, so that they can see that they have a legacy of belonging to their community, of service to their community, and also building the future of our country. So it's so important to get our young people there. And we ask them a lot of things. We ask them to do a lot of things, but this is something they can do in service. And that's why we give the community awards at Patriots Day. We recognize the work that our young people are doing in our community, whether they're helping the seniors, whether they're talking or they're working at community health centers, or they're doing, we give the Warren I. Brown Scholarship for the scholarship that they've had in their educational pursuits and their desire to go on to college and be part of the community. We want to bring those young people back, and maybe they will be leading Patriots Day in the future, because, you know, that's the vision we have to have, a continuation and service and the legacy of those people who have come before us. So we want them to know who those are, who those people have been, and what they're going to be doing in the future. So it's something I think that we all want to be a part of, as a part of the history of the community, part of the service to the community, and also being the bridge to bring other young people forward. And I think that's what we all would love to see here in Roxbury.
Thank you, Thomas.
Anything you want to say, Cheryl, as well?
I was
I
just
know
gonna
that
say, it's of course, it's very personal to me because Warren I. Brown is my dad. And as Tom said, it was his very important to him to have young people involved in the community. It was very important to him that they knew his history, as he instilled in me and my sister when we were young. And it's my absolute honor and my family's honor to be able to offer this scholarship and to students who demonstrate civic pride, who demonstrate a knowledge of history, who demonstrate the willingness to take what they have and move on and share it with others. And so we are hoping that they can get inspired. It also gives me an opportunity to share more stories, because I still am a member of the Ramsey Toy. So every opportunity, but it's really just through my dad and sharing his dream that we would have people so committed to Roxbury and Dorchester and their community that it would just make the world better for everyone.
you shared a story, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, Cheryl, about how your dad cultivated in you an appreciation for history.
I love this particular memory that I have of my dad, because it was kind of twofold. Every Sunday after Sunday school, he would take me and my sister and some of my cousins sometime to a different site in Boston and talk about the history. One place every week, it would be someplace different every week. And I just learned so much about Boston history through that. And then after that, we got to have milkshakes when they had drugstores. But I think it was that just sparked my interest. And again, just teaching me the importance of community at a very young age, I think has helped me try to keep his legacy going, as well as my mother's.
I'm going to share also. It was wonderful meeting Mr. Brown back in the 1980s, and he was doing Patriots Day, and he actually schooled me about the importance of Patriots Day, and I've kept my interest and hope that Patriots Day will continue to be celebrated in Roxbury. And so from Mr. Brown, I get a great start.
For those who don't know what exactly we mean when we talk about the Patriots Day. People know Patriots Day as a holiday in Massachusetts. You know, they may know about celebrations in Lexington and Concord and other places, but can you talk about what happens here on Patriots Day in acknowledgement of the American Revolution? Can you just tell people, paint a picture of what does the Patriots Day celebration look like in Roxbury?
Well, we get it started off with a community breakfast, and
it's right here at the Urban Minute at First Church Roxbury.
Right, it's in First Church in Roxbury, and we have our Newton U Youth congregation that helps prepare the breakfast. So, and then we have the community awards, and then about 9 o'clock, sometimes 9:15 or so, the reenactment writer, Mr. William Dawes, who rode through Roxbury in the historic ride of William Dawes that takes place on that day in April of 1775. He rides up. There are now the National Lancers who reenact the ride. He comes in, and we have the celebration of them. They read a poem. We give a poem about Roxbury that was written by Mr. Brown. And we also have William Dawes' poem, which is sort of a funny poem because people know Paul Revere's ride more than they know William Dawes' ride. Mm-hmm. And so we have that celebration. Mary Margaret sends the horse off, and he rides to Lexington and Concord. So that's about the celebration of and a reenactment ride. Then we have a talk, a historical talk after the ride in the parish house. And so then we have a trolley ride around Boston, and Brian Rushing gives a historical talk about these famous and historical sites throughout Roxbury. And so the Patriots Day comes usually to a close between 1 and 2 o'clock. We have the Dillaway Thomas House open. If you can visit that to see the 1752 house from the Revolutionary period. And it's also the former parish house, parish minister's house of the First Church in Roxbury. So these are all wonderful places to visit, understand the history there if you want to visit, and also to stop by First Church in Roxbury as the meeting house is under repair and almost finished. And you can see where people worship during that 18th and 19th and 20th centuries.
I think there was a picture of you in that, Thomas.
Yes, oh my God. Yes.
Yeah,
in Revolutionary War garb.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go back and let everybody see that. Love that.
So you see Mr. Dawes and the horse.
Mr. Dawes and the horse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's important to note because I've been there when it's been more than 100 people gathered for that celebration. So it's a really significant event in this community, very important. And, you know, it's folks like you, Joyce Stanley, Jamada, others who have made sure that it continues and perseveres. And it's very important to lift up that history. There is a question from our friend Joyce Stanley. And she's asking, her question is, where is there a representation of all African Americans who served in Roxbury just blocks away from First Church? I think she has a prompt for you to talk about something. Do you want to talk about the Gordine?
Gordine.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just recently had the statue of Edward R. Gordine, Gordine Park placed there. And we want everyone to visit there. Edward R. Gordine was he was the leader of the 372nd Infantry Battalion and later became the 200 and merged with the 272nd Field Artillery Battalion. He was a silver Olympic medalist in the long jump. And also he served as the on the Massachusetts Supreme Court. So he was the first African-American to actually serve on the Supreme Court in Massachusetts. And so he retired as a brigadier general in the National Guard. But that's a park you can visit and see the statue. It still is not finished because we want to also have other medallions surrounding Edward R. Goodine in the park that has some of the historical figures that served during the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and also the World Wars, and certainly our most recent wars in the Gulf and so forth. So these are some of the things that are going to be happening. We're glad the statue's there today. It's right down there between Malcolm X Boulevard, Washington Street, and Dudley Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume you've both been down to, it's a 1-minute walk from the Urban Ministry down the hill to the memorial. I assume you've both seen it and visited it. And
for many years we visited, and they marched there, some of the veterans, and there wasn't one there, and we were concerned, but now that it is there, dream of the finished park. And I think it's going to be a great place for veterans and community people to gather when we have Veterans Day, we have parades, when we have Patriots Day. This is a time for us to come out and celebrate our wonderful heroes that have served from Roxbury.
And I was there for the unveiling of the statue, and it was just a beautiful ceremony.
Nice. Thank you both again for all that you are doing to celebrate the work of folks who have died for the freedom of this country. And I know that many folks in our audience tonight are very interested in finding out how they can support the work that you are doing. And I wonder if both of you could talk a little bit about how folks could help support this work, in addition to coming out to Patriots Day and celebrating.
Well, one of the things they can easily do is to call the Urban Ministry, support them and all their activities, because they're working to uplift and the work that we're doing in the community. They're being the person and the organization that will help us realize some of the dreams that we had in terms of history, dismantling racism, particularly white supremacy. And so their mission is really something that we want you to know about. And also you can call them, make donations, and you can call the Urban Ministry and do that. And it's a very easy thing to do. If we want these programs to go forward, they do need support. Patriots Day needs support as well, because we do provide those things that are necessary, but they do cost. So that's the easiest thing you can do, is to make that telephone call, come on down and see us, and get involved.
thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
I didn't set you up to say that, to make donations. I didn't
Well,
set
we're
that
glad
up,
you
but
said
thank
it.
you for that.
Yes. Thank you.
I guess it's my hope that I can get more information out about the Warren I. Brown Scholarship. And one of the dreams I have is that recipients of that scholarship will come back in the future and become active participants of our Patriots Day celebrations.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we will definitely promote all of those opportunities to our young people at RYP. Many thanks again to both of you for joining us this evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Any
much.
final
Thank
words,
you for the
everyone?
work that you do. I've had the honor of working with Mr. Plant and Thomas Plant with Cheryl Brown-Greene since I came. I met them during Patriots Day, and I've just seen their steadfast support, how much they care. It's just been an inspiration to me. So I'm so happy to have you here to share a little bit more about Patriots Day, a little bit more about hidden heroes, to lift up more of the ways that African American history needs to be lifted up and shared. So thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate your presence here tonight. Thank you.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank
And we
you.
hope that the next community conversations, we'll be talking about Revolution Today in Roxbury, and we'll be talking about who are some modern change makers that are making a revolutionary difference. So we hope that you'll join us for that next community conversation. We thank everybody here for spending a chilly evening with us, and we hope that you'll tune in to our next conversation. Thank you, everybody, and happy 2025.
Yes, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.